Believe in yourself and all that you do. There are things you'll create that could only come from you. The way you see the world might be your source of inspiration, but the way you interact with it makes you part of the creation. This is actually a bit of a biblical poem, but I really like the connection to creating imagery. Not in any way am I trying to imply or discourage any form of religion into this review, but being part of creation, creating a fantastic and a rewarding and enjoyable image, instead of just being full auto and everything's easy for you and you capture an image, having to actually mechanically, physically turn some dials, set your settings, take your time, take a breath, breathe it in, sculpt it. It's incredibly rewarding. Now, a question many people will be wondering is whether to buy the X-T5, the XH2 or the XH2s. So to really cut things down, there are a few differences, and they are mostly to do with video. The X-T5 is still capable of 6.2K at 30p, and 4K 60p or 4K HQ at 30p, which is a downsampled 6.2K. But the XH2 can capture 8K 30p, and the XH2s has 4K 120p and 6.2K in a 3:2 open gate ratio. Now, part of this difference is due to because unlike the XH2s, the X-T5 has two SD card slots instead of just one SD and one CF Express slot, which some of us will absolutely love. When it comes to megapixels, the sensor, the processor, the X-T5 and the X-H2 are pretty much identical, but with the X-H2s having a stack sensor for faster readout speeds and less rolling shutter. The X-T5 does not have a headphone port and has the smaller micro HDMI port, though its port covers are the new hinge style doors, which I personally like a lot better than the X-T4's flappy panels. Its focus selector is still a switch on the front. Both its front and rear command dials are clickable. It still has the annoying neck strap lugs that its predecessors have. It has a mountain of customizable FN buttons, and it's still available in the retro silver colour that so many of you love. But the reason to buy the X-T5 is due to its ergonomics, its way of operation, even though it might not be for everyone. And those of you new to Fujifilm, you might find the transition a little tricky. But for fans of the system, for those of you who have grown to love having a shutter dial, an ISO dial, a non-articulating screen, this camera was made for you. Fujifilm have followed trends of more recent cameras with the introduction of a PASM mode dial, and yes, I do believe it has its place. But the reason Fujifilm has such a die-hard cult following is the reason the X-T5 was made. For those who like a mechanical way of operating, for those who like to see etching and numbers without the need for a screen, for those who like to feel they are carving an image out of the world by hand into something personal, for when you just don't care about subscribers or likes, for those who appreciate colour, depth, detail, character. We've reached a point where specs mean less and less to us, and all we want is the best tool for the job that talks back to us in a language we understand. For those that chase the light, the story, the emotion. For those who like to print, to hold, to experience. For those who get up first or stay up late because we love what we do and we love how we do it. Some of you may remember my review of the X-T4, where I took photos every day for 30 days of a random subject. But for this camera, I wanted to do something a little easier, something a little more enjoyable, and that was just to capture as many photos as I could that I was happy with for the 2 weeks that I had the camera for. And what you might have already noticed is that I captured nearly all of those photos with one lens, but it did still have some requirements. Those were mostly that I just had to have the camera on me every day when I went for my morning or evening walk with my dog, or whenever I just felt like having some fun with the camera. But another part of the challenge was that I couldn't edit any of the photos. I had to be happy with each of them straight out of the camera. I also ended up shooting nearly all of them in a square ratio just for a bit more of a challenge. And from doing this project, I learned two things. First and foremost is that when it comes to capturing photos in a way that makes me happy, I really prefer using the X-T5 over my XH2s. The combination of a tilt screen and an exposure compensation dial really are my preferred way of operating. The second thing is how much I loved photography again. One lens, no editing, and a camera that I love to use really works for me. And if you've been having some trouble finding your photographic inspiration, then maybe one good lens, no editing, and the X-T5 just might be the fuel you need to make you fall in love with photography all over again. But for those that worry about specs, and if this is the best camera for you, I can make things really simple. The X-T5 has more megapixels than most. It has better autofocus than most. Its video is still outstanding, and in 2022 what you can edit from the RAW files is more than good enough to win you any award. Or for those of you that don't like to edit, the dynamic range, the colours, the detail you can get straight from the camera really are the best. For those that have never tried a Fuji camera before, I'd really suggest getting your hands on one to see what the magic is about. And for those that have used the X-T1, 2, 3 or 4, the X-T5 isn't a small upgrade. And yes, deciding between the XH2 and the XH2s will be hard, but if photography is your primary, if capturing photos is what you love to do, then I can tell you that Fujifilm have listened and that the X-T5 is for you.